Welcome to today's talk session. My name is Deidre Moss, and I'm the host of Can We Talk? I'm an educator, motivator, and a talk connoisseur. In our session today, we will focus on disability pride. Today, my guest is Kendrick Roll, and he will help us to dissect this topic. At this time, I will pass the virtual mic to him so that he can introduce himself. Mr. Roll?
Well, good afternoon to you, madam, and good afternoon to your listening audience. I am Kendrick Roll. I have many caps, so let me start like this. First of all, I'm the Technical Programs Officer and Special Projects Coordinator for the Disability Affairs Division of the Department of Social Services. I am also the CEO of my daughter's company called the KRM Group, which is Kenesha Rolls Management Group. We are an entity that focuses on doing initiatives, whether it's fundraising or bringing greater awareness for persons with disabilities and their capabilities. I'm also the founder and the chairman of BACADIS, which is the Bahamas Coalition of Advocates for Disability Awareness and Services. And I am the immediate past president of the Bahamas Alliance for the Blind and Visually Impaired. So right now, my work and everything around me is focused on disability and empowering the lives of persons with disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Roll. I want to thank you for that introduction. And I also want to thank you for joining us today. As we can see, you are on the road in your car. You're very busy. So I want to thank you for taking that time out to join us for this session today. And I also
right now we're doing an event this coming. Yes, I was saying something went off. Yeah, but I was saying, yes, I'm doing the final legwork as we have an event coming up this holiday Monday. On Monday, we're going to be doing a fundraising initiative at the Western Esplanade. That is just the eastern side from the Awa Key Fish Fry. We're having a Mustang car show, a sound show, and a grill out as we are raising funds to assist children with the purchase of glasses to go back to school in this fall season.
Awesome, good stuff. Awesome. So that's for the Emancipation Day holiday.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. And I also want to acknowledge those persons who would have also joined our meeting today. And so if they have anything to add, they'll feel free to add. Mr. Gilbert Williams, Ms. Brenda Childs, and Mr. Anthony Mills. So with that, we will get started with our talk today. And so I want to talk about your background. You talked a little bit about your associations and the organizations that you've been affiliated with. But can you tell us about your background and how did you become an advocate for persons with disabilities, particularly for the community of persons who are visually impaired? And I want to use the right wording. Can I say blind?
Yes, it's blind. You're either blind or visually impaired. Blind persons have no sight at all. Visually impaired persons are when your vision is 2200 and below, then you are visually impaired. And in some instances, legally blind. You know, persons without 20/20 vision, 20/40, but when you reach 2200, you would have hit that stage of legal blindness, and then 2400, and then it actually fades out until you have actually low vision. That's where you're really visually impaired, and the next step is blindness. But yeah, this June past made 20 years to be exact when I got caught in a situation trying to be a peacemaker, and I ended up getting hit in my eyes, led to retina detachments. And after a number of surgeries, plus I still end up with chronic glaucoma, and my vision then deteriorated till I was legally blind and not low vision, and eventually I became blind. But during the years prior through my total blindness, I began a movement in the Pinewood community called Stop the Violence. It was all about just promoting peace initiatives for our community, and hoping that send a message that there wouldn't be other persons who would end up like myself. Through my community works, I landed a job with the Urban Renewal Commission at the Pinewood Urban Renewal Center. And it was while working in urban renewal, one of the things that the main initiative of urban renewal is to work with persons in the communities, no matter their status. And I started to recognize that there were a lot of other blind persons in communities as well as persons with disabilities. And so eventually, through studying, as I was becoming blind, just through my studies and research on how we could do things to empower the lives of persons with disabilities, I started learning about, which was Disability Awareness Day, which now has become the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. Then I would look up the various types of disabilities and see when those days would be recognized. So eventually in my planning, I started to present a lot of projects to the Urban Renewal Board about doing things for persons with disabilities. And that one thing led to another. And then some years later, they transferred me into the Disability Affairs Division of the Department of Social Services, where I then, having the duty is to have the liaise with the various NGOs for persons with disabilities right here in New Providence and in Grand Bahama. I began working closely with them, which really raised more my awareness of the plight of persons with disabilities right here in our country. And just through working with them daily, I became more interested in the fight. And I then joined the Bahamas Alliance for the Blind, where I eventually rose to the seat of the presidency, where I just finished my term, and my work just continues. So just enjoying the work and recognizing the things that has to be done for persons with disabilities, and also just helping, just doing my part. And to date now, that's just my full work all around. Everything I do is in respect to dealing with persons with disabilities.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Rule. Thank you so much for sharing. And I wanted to touch a little bit, just a little bit, just to make sure if you're okay with that. I just wanted to pinpoint the fact that um, blindness is something that it can easily happen. I mean, you talk about you were just, I would say, minding your business, but you were trying to um,
Be a peacemaker.
yeah, be a
So
piece.
I
Yeah.
wasn't really minding my business. If I was minding my business, I wouldn't have tried stop that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, that's what happened. Trying to be an advocate for peace also, and that's what led to my situation. But blindness is something that some people end up blind over a period of time, and some end up with what you could also call instant blindness, depending on what type of injury or circumstances they meet. But when you look at other blindness that comes whether through glaucoma or other uncontrollable diseases, it it is said that about 80% of persons who became blind could have avoided their blindness just through the lack of having regular eye checkups or treatment. So that's why they say it, and that is what they call avoidable blindness, but comes from various health conditions. And if you would have taken care of these conditions or caught them in their early stages through regular eye exam, then you would not have ended up blind. And that is one of the statistics you would find when you do whether it's a Google search or you just doing research on the particular topic of blindness. You would recognize that is one of the things they always talk about: avoidable blindness, and how taking care of yourself you would make things better for you.
I just want to thank you. I just wanted to pinpoint that, and I just want to thank you for sharing sharing that, sometimes we take these things for granted, but you highlighting that kind of, lets us know that it's something that can happen. It can happen to anyone. So I just want to thank you for, yeah, for sharing that as well. And let's get to our next point, blindness awareness. Can you tell us why blindness awareness is important, and what is your role in sharing the message of blindness awareness? Why is it important for sighted persons to take preventative measures to preserve their vision? And again, you would have talked about persons, they could have avoided it if they would have done their checkups, and you spoke to that. So why is it important to take those preventative measures, and what are some of the preventative measures that your organization has undertaken to spread the message or share the message of blindness awareness?
So, yeah, sorry, but that it. Hello,
Hi,
hello.
go ahead, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Yeah, we had it. Yeah. Okay. Blindness awareness
Hi.
is all about eye protection, sight preservation, and blindness prevention. What we want to do, and the Bahamas Alliance for the Blind and Vision Impaired usually celebrates Blindness Awareness Month every October. And during that, we emphasize on the importance of regular eye checkup. We emphasize on the importance of making material accessible for blind and visually impaired persons. We also bring greater awareness to the tools that is used for independence, like the white keying and smart devices, including our cell phones and other material for that. And we also want to bring awareness to the public about the capabilities of persons who are blind or visually impaired and their talents and all the other stuff that we can do. And that is the main focus, do that. And we also want to encourage persons to take care of their eyes, because losing your eyes and becoming blind could be a very dramatic experience. So we focus on that, as well as we focus on the fact that if you find yourself in that condition, that you are blind or visually with main points to
Hi, Ken. So we lost a little bit of your connection. I'm gonna pause for a while and see if you can come back in.
blindness, and yeah, making positive contributions to
I'm gonna
society
okay.
with
Can
your
you
blindness.
hi, Ken?
Hi.
I just need you to repeat. I just need you to just go back a little bit and repeat just a little bit of what you said, because you broke up just a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was saying
Mhm.
the main focuses of blindness awareness is to bring more visibility to the general public about persons who are blind, their capabilities, their talents, and also to create opportunities for persons who are blind and visually impaired. We emphasize or highlight training, education, and, and also employment opportunities. Additionally, we want to always encourage the general public to protect their eyes, get regular eye checkups, and if they find themselves in a condition, to always treat that condition, eat healthy, exercise, do whatever is necessary to preserve your vision. Additionally, we'd like to encourage them to let them know that if they would have lost their sight, that they can still live a full, fruitful life in society, being a blind individual, and still make positive contributions to the development of your country. We also highlight the talents and accomplishments of blind and visually impaired persons internationally, not only and along with those who are local. And we always encourage them to try and join organizations like the Bahamas Alliance for the Blind and Visually Impaired, where they can always socialize and be motivated by their peers, and they can get counseling and anything to do with coping with blindness is available through the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Roll. You're doing a good work. And again, I see you doing a lot of movements. I just want to apologize for that video. I
Yes,
know
yes,
you're busy. You're
yeah.
busy. So
The car is
yes,
moving.
I
We're trying to
understand. You're
get
busy
stuff.
and you out there doing the work because you have this Independence Day. You have a upcoming event.
Yes, it's
You're running around trying to get those that
called Vision
last
Drive.
minute stuff done.
No, yes, that's Emancipation Day. We have Vision Drive at
Yes.
the Western Esplanade. It's going to be a car show, a sound show, and a green session. Go towards our blindness prevention program where we are purchasing glasses for children to return back to school for the fall season.
Awesome, awesome. And we just begun our back to school series. So that kind of comes in line of with what we're focusing on and what we're talking about. Mr. Roll, I would have lost your video, but I'll wait for you to come back in because I understand you're on the road. So we will continue going. And I want to talk about our next point, focus on our next point of disability pride. Um, is you okay? Okay, gotcha. You're back in. Okay, so what is your view of disability? Well, I think I would have I would have I would have not mentioned talked about the overview of this topic. So this session basically is a focus also on disability pride as well. So a major objective of this platform is to have meaningful talk to inform and also bring awareness to issues that impact us, not just locally but regionally and internationally as well. So disability pride is observed in the month of July to create visibility and bring awareness to the community of people with disabilities. My guest today is knowledgeable about this topic. He's a strong advocate, as we would have listened to him talk about the initiatives that he is doing, that he has already done, and that he's working on now. He's a strong advocate for people or persons with disabilities, particularly as it pertains to the community of the blind and visually impaired persons. And he is here to share his insight today. So I would have not brought that overview in, but I want to talk about our next point, disability pride. Again, I want to acknowledge those other persons who are in this session today with us as well, and they can chime in and let us know their thoughts as well. Mr. Roll, you come back. I guess you come back in with your video. But as I previously mentioned in our introduction, disability pride is observed in the month of July to create disability and disability awareness, disability visibility. What is your view of disability pride as an individual with a disability, particularly in the Bahamas? Do you believe that the community of persons with disabilities are recognized and that the public respects the community of persons with disabilities? That persons to honoring persons with disability in terms of parking spots and respecting the white cane, and as you would have talked about, and other things that pertains to the community of persons with disabilities. So Ken, Mr. Roll, I will wait for your video to kick back in. I know you're in the, okay. You would have gotten that question, right? You would have heard the question?
You were asking, sorry about that. You were asking about disability pride and how people in the Bahamas and our country feel like they treat us with enough respect or was not. And
Correct.
that someone is constantly calling me about the situation. That's why I keep those in the video. Yeah, you have to pardon me. Um, the disability pride, in my opinion, is all about persons with disabilities showing their pride. And we have some persons who are bold enough and who are proud enough to step out and show persons they are proud of their disability and still that they have capabilities uh, and, and talents and what's not. And then there are some who are kind of ashamed of their disability or their families are ashamed, and so they are locked away, they're shut in, They don't really get to come out and socialize and be motivated by other persons with disabilities. And I think the main problem is being educated. We need more education for the general public to understand the various disabilities. They need to understand what it is to have a disability. They also need to understand etiquette in dealing with persons with disabilities. And then they need to understand the law that protects persons with disabilities. Though I feel like once more education is provided for the general public on those topics, then persons in the general public will start to understand, appreciate, and show more respect for the community of persons with disabilities. You talk about Disability Pride Month, and that is celebrated mostly in the US. But internationally, the International Day for Persons with Disability is usually is recognized annually on the 3rd of December. And it is during that time that most countries, particularly those in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and St. Kitts, the Bahamas, we usually organize Disability Awareness Week around that time. And it is during that week with the number of activities and events that are held, which really brings that opportunity for those with disability to really come out and show their pride and what's not as a person, group, or organization with disability.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so we get into our next point, issues and challenges. Um, I wanted to ask, Mr. Williams, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you tell us about your organization? I said I would bring you in. Mr. Roll, I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to bring you back in. But Mr. Williams, can you tell us about your organization?
Okay, well, firstly, let me say thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about Special Olympics Bahamas. I did get the invitation out, and I do see a couple of our members, one of our athletes, and also our area coordinator from Grand Bahama. They're both on, so that's great. But yeah, Special Olympics Bahamas is an organization that focuses on persons with intellectual disability. This is one of the disabilities that it's very difficult, if not impossible, in some cases to detect. The general public, a lot of times we get where they look at an individual and say things like, well, I don't see anything wrong with him, or I don't see anything wrong with her. And we sort of respond to that in a way that you're quite right. There is nothing wrong with this individual. Just because they think differently and just do things a little bit different from us, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. And so intellectual disability is something that has been a challenge in the Bahamas and throughout the world for quite a while. And the organization, the international organization, was founded actually in 1968. And we, in the Bahamas, started our organization in 1978. And our focus is providing training and competition opportunities for persons with intellectual disabilities. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we are all about.
Thank you. And I really would like to thank everyone who would have joined us in today. If you're not able to share your videos, just having your presence here and giving us a little bit of insight in disabilities, issues with disabilities, and challenges with disabilities, particularly here in the Bahamas, is valuable. And I want to thank you for sharing that. I know my experience in working along with Mr. Roll has given me, sorry, has given me a lot of insight and has helped me a lot in kind of understanding and bringing awareness to disability. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. And so, Mr. Roll, I want to talk about issues and challenges, and if anyone who feel fit to comment or give your insight, you can share as well. So I wanted to ask, do you think that there are issues and challenges that impact the community of people with disabilities, particularly as we consider that we're in the hurricane season actually? Can you share how the community of persons with disabilities are impacted, and then also the issues and challenges that pertains to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic as we observe social distancing protocols and emergency orders? How is the community of persons with disabilities being impacted? So, Mr. Roll, I'll get to you first, and then anyone else, you can feel free to chime in.
Well, there is so much. It's a lot to chime in on that, but I can take time. So I'll start off with the COVID-19. Um, First, one of the few things I'll start off. They were having challenges. We saw our interpreters, sign language interpreters, being a part of the broadcasts or the presentations that would come to national addresses and was not. So their information was limited until they would have gotten various text messages or messages sent across social media. And not all the time, those social media messages were correct, because there was a lot of, to use somebody else's phrase, fake news going around. And so that was a lot. That's how it infected the community who are deaf and hard of hearing. Wheelchair users and other disabilities, they had comorbidities, so they really had to be locked down per se, or they would social who there are still a number of persons out there who feel like the COVID was not real, so they would be breaking protocols and just walk up to you and touch you and say things, and this would put persons who are blind and visually impaired at high high risk, and also in a lot of fear, because they wouldn't know if the person who approaches them is infected or not. Then when you talk about going into public spaces, persons who are blind and visually impaired usually use their hands to try and get a grips with their surroundings. And that there would also bring a level of fear, because they're not, when they're touching these surfaces, they don't know if it's sanitized or not. So that was another issue. And then, give me a second, please. And then those etiquette teaches you that when you're traveling with a person with disability and you're leading them, the person must hold on to the bent elbow so that the sighted person can lead them and take them wherever they need to go. And throughout the protocols, they would tell persons that if you need to sneeze or cough, sneeze into your bent elbow, which now prevents the person who is blind or visually impaired being led by the sighted guide to put their hand straight into that disease infected area if that person is a carrier. So that are some of the areas that the COVID-19 had affected persons with disabilities. Now we're talking about being in a hurricane season. This is the part where we are trying to get persons with disabilities to be registered with the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Once they are registered, now the commission would have the responsibility of knowing who they are, where they are, and how we can make contact with them. This, in case of there being a disaster in that area, the National Commission can now go to that data and say, I have John Doe, who is a person who is a wheelchair user living in the eastern end of the area, and a flood is coming. So we contact NEMA or some of the other relevant agencies and send them exactly to make sure that John Doe is safe, or to get him or her to a safer environment. And so that is why we are constantly having a drive to ensure that persons with disabilities are registered. And by being registered, they now are able to receive those type of assistance in times of need and disaster. So and of course, we have not in any modern or recent times heard of any persons with disabilities being or suffering any major damage or loss of life during any hurricanes, or was not in time. Assistance is available to them, especially if they are registered with the National Commission.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Maxine, you want to share that comment, Maxine? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm gonna write it because I had a tooth extraction today, so
Oh, okay.
it's difficult. So I'll write it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll read the comment that you would have shared, but I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you. So Maxine said the commission has sent the list of persons registered with them to NEMA. So I want to thank you for sharing that. So this chat. Is there anyone Mr. Williams, or anyone else who would like to further add to the challenges and the issues of persons with disabilities?
Yes. Okay. Well, I certainly can, I guess, follow on what Mr. Roll, everything that Mr. Roll has said. And in addition to that, when we talk about persons with intellectual disabilities, I guess, fortunately, most, if not all, of the persons with intellectual disabilities are currently living with a guardian, a parent, a caretaker. There you would normally find persons who would be called a higher functioning. And even though a lot of those persons can do a lot for themselves, most of them, in fact, all that I'm aware of, are still living with some other individual. And then you have those who are on the lower end of the functioning scale. They certainly are with some sort of parent, guardian, family member, caretaker. And so the two areas you mentioned, COVID and Dorian, we certainly would have experienced in our organization a tremendous amount of, I guess, dealing with both of those issues. And particularly when we go back to Dorian, my mind ran on all of our athletes, both in Grand Bahama and in Abaco, who their homes, most of them, and particularly in Abaco, their homes would have suffered significant damages. And a number of our athletes were able to tell the tale of actually riding out these storms and even having to get out in the hurricane conditions. And again, fortunately, a lot of them were with other siblings or parents, and so they all fared well and came through the storm. In terms of personal well-being, obviously a lot of them lost homes or had damages to homes, and so that was a bit traumatic for some of them. As far as the COVID-19, again, as you're aware, Special Olympics Bahamas is basically a sporting organization. And so we had to put all of our activity on hold for well beyond a year. In fact, we were just able to begin training again in Grand Bahama around October of last year. And in New Providence, we were able to get some training in around March, beginning around March of this year. So for our athletes who were used to getting out on the weekend, getting in their physical activity, interacting socially with their peers, it became a very frustrating ordeal for all of them, if not many of them, because as we always say, a lot of our athletes, believe it or not, their weekly training programs is really their social event for the week. And so, can you imagine having to deal with COVID, not being able to get out, not being able to socialize, and as Ken mentioned earlier in his address, you have a lot of situations still, unfortunately, where persons are pretty much locked away or kept indoors because of the stigma attached, and that certainly applies directly to persons with intellectual disabilities. There are still far too many families in the Bahamas that I guess are embarrassed by the situation, and they prefer to keep their loved ones, if I can use that term, at home, hidden away, and they get no socialization. So COVID-19 in particular, I think was a very had a very traumatic impact on a lot of our athletes. And so we were able to fortunately keep touch with a lot of them via social media, WhatsApp groups, Zoom meetings. A lot of them were, in fact, a very efficient at using the social media platforms. And so we were able to hold several Zoom meetings and engage our athletes. And you could tell that they were so grateful for that opportunity, just to be in communication with their peers, persons who they haven't seen for, well, now going on almost 2 years. So it's been quite a trying time. But, we have been doing our best to get our athletes through it. And I think in due course, we're going to get back on the field of play in full force. And our athletes are going to benefit a lot from that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And hopefully, there will be they will be able to get back to some type of socialization or some back to some type of normalcy, so on. And so I want to talk about support as well. Um, Mr. Rowe, we lost your video, but I guess you will come back in. So we want to talk about support. Oh, let me just get to Mr. Stubbs' comments because those are so important. And so Ms. Stubbs says that the commission has sent the list because we would have talked about the hurricane season that we're in. So she said that the commission, meaning the commission. Just confirm for me the name of the commission. I know what you're referring to, but I want to call the correct name. She said that the commission has sent the list of persons that are registered with them to NEMA. So if anyone has not registered, they need to. We are in the hurricane season, and also for minors or any with PWD needing a caregiver, it's important to register in the event that they need to go to a shelter. And so I just wanted to share that comment. And so I wanted to talk about support. What are your views on support to the community of persons with disabilities in the Bahamas? Mr. Roll, your video is out. You'll come back in. Mr. Williams, while he is out, can you chime in? What are your views on the level of support to the community of persons with disabilities?
Okay. All right. Well, I will speak, I guess, mainly again from the perspective of Special Olympics Bahamas. And I think based on my interaction with some of the other NGOs, I can speak a little to their situation. And so what I would say is that I want to start firstly, though, from the internal, what I call the internal support. And even though I think there is, and depending on which organization or which type of disability you're dealing with, you can get more or less support for those persons. Um, but I think it has to start with family members, family and friends. And I know that's one of the things that our organization has struggled with. Again, we talk about this whole stigma that is attached, particularly to persons with intellectual disabilities. And family members tend to want to hide those persons or lock them away, shut them in, and not afford them the opportunity to enjoy life just like everybody else. And so that has been a challenge from within the community itself. And one of the things I always say is that, listen, if you are not gonna fully support your family, your friend, your loved one that has an intellectual disability, then to expect support from the general public, I think is unreasonable. So once we go outside of the organization now or outside of the community, again, I think we get a mixed bag of reaction. There are some corporate citizens and individuals that are very supportive of the organization, and we certainly wanna thank them for that. And I'm not just talking financial. We are even, we get excited when persons actually show up to support in person the events that we put on, because there's no fun. As I guess as people begin to watch the current Olympic Games and see how different it is watching these games as opposed to watching in the past where the stands were filled with people, and I'm sure the athletes feel it as well. And so that is something that the athletes from Special Olympics Bahamas has been dealing with for years, competing or participating in an event where essentially there's just a handful of people in the stadium, as opposed to looking around and seeing the stands filled with persons cheering on. That's where the athletes get their pride and joy. So, like I said, you have a mixed bag of reactions out there where, yes, there are some individuals, some companies that we can count on in a heartbeat. And then there are others who, just for whatever reason, I guess, don't come on board and support. And my final comment on that is, I say there are people who have the heart to support, but don't have the means. There are some people that have the means to support, but they don't have the heart. And there are very few people that we run into that have both the heart and the means, and we are forever grateful to those persons, whether it be the individuals or companies who come out and support, not just Special Olympics Bahamas, but the other organizations within the wider disabled community.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And lastly, as we get into our last point, I think Ken is finally gone. I don't know if he'll be back with us again, but I want to thank you, Mr. Williams, for chiming in. And so we get to our last point. What do you think the local community can do to support the community of persons with disabilities? Have you observed or identified any areas that need to be improved to support the community of persons with disabilities? And are there any recommendations that you would like to make, or anyone else who would like to chime in?
Okay, I guess I'll chime in again. I was hoping that someone else would have input, but and this certainly would have been a really good question to hear Ken's input on, because he has been involved with more of the organizations, the disabled organizations, than most of us. But fortunately, right now, I am actually on the planning committee for Disability Awareness Week, which will happen later on this year. And so those are some of the very things that we are actually discussing right now. Are we satisfied with the level of support that we have been getting? And if not, what are some of the things that we can do as members of the disability community, as well as what are some of the things that we can encourage the public to do to get in and give more support, lend more support to the disability community. And the thing is a lot of things I always say we take for granted, seemingly small things, but when you have a disability, depending on what that thing is, it's not a small thing at all. And so, we've heard the stories of persons within the deaf community in particular. You can't look at someone and tell that they're deaf. And so a lot of people interact with them as though they can hear. And they think, I guess a lot of times they're just being ignored by the individual, when in fact, the individual just isn't able to hear what they're saying. Blindness, for example, is one of the disabilities that people can see, as they say, a mile off. You see persons in wheelchairs, and that's an obvious one. But there are just so many things that the public can do, and I believe the commission, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, they have been working on a lot of the initiatives, and I think their role though is, and they encourage the individual organizations to make recommendations to them, and then they, as the commission, will then take some of those initiatives and run with it, whether they have to go through government ministries. But as Mr. Roll mentioned earlier, I think one of the things in particular is for the general public to, I guess, be educated, whether it's with the assistance of the disabled community or initiatives on their own, and just respect the laws and things that are in place. I mean, one of the obvious things we see, for instance, is the disabled parking spaces. And what has become norm or commonplace is you see these large cones placed into the parking spaces, and that is because I guess over time the general public just don't respect the spaces, and they just pull in as though it's just a regular space. They hop out of their car and think nothing about it. And so this is why I guess security persons have had to block them off. And so that's one area, I think obvious and easy area where the public can help in support, and that just respect the spaces. There are persons who struggle to get in and out of their vehicles, and then they struggle to walk from where that vehicle is parked to the business place, for example, that they go in. And so it may seem like a small thing, but when you are the one that has to go through that struggle, it's not a small thing at all. So, just respecting the individuals with disabilities, I think will go a long way. And that's one of the things that the general public can do to assist in that area.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Williams. I want to thank you for sharing that. And again, I just want to acknowledge all of those persons who are here with us, joining us today. Maxine is saying usually security officers put those cones for their special friends. You think so? You agree?
Well, I don't know, and she may be have more insight on it than I do. But I always wonder about the cones because Again, even when someone with a disability pulls up, they're still not able to pull into the spot. And if the security officers are not paying attention, then the individual has to either, blow their horn constantly or try and get the attention of those security officers, or just move off, find someplace else to park, or just change their mind and say, well, I'll have to come back to this business later. So it shouldn't have to happen. Let's put it like that. And I think perhaps if the penalties were a little bit stiffer and enforced a little bit more, then perhaps people would begin to be forced to respect things as simple as that.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
My name is Anthony Mills. I'm from St. Kitts. I'm a member of the St. Kitts Nevis Association of Persons with Disabilities. And I just wanted to piggyback on what the speaker before me was saying about the cones. I'm a wheelchair user myself.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mills. Can you get your volume up just a little bit higher?
Give me a hot second. Okay, how's that sound?
A little bit better. It's a little bit better. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So can you introduce yourself again and tell us where you're from?
I'm Anthony Mills. I'm from St. Kitts, and I'm a member of the St. Kitts Nevis Association of Persons with Disabilities. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what the speaker before was saying about the cones being placed in the parking spots, because as a wheelchair user myself, if you pull up to a parking spot and there's a cone and there's nobody to move it, it provides another added challenge for you. Shut up, go. That's my dog. Shut up, go. And then what happens is that you have to try to. I've had that problem before where you have to try to get out and move it, or go ahead and park some places. I think it's incumbent upon the business places themselves to go and try to ensure that nobody parks in those spaces. I've seen people gotten out of their car and move them just to park in the space, and they're not a person with a disability, but they just want to park close. So those are some of the challenges that people with disabilities face, in terms, not only in terms of parking, but in terms of actual access to some buildings. I mean, here in St. Kitts, we are currently lobbying to get the building codes revised, because what we find is that more and more buildings is going up, and there isn't access because there's no law that say that they have to provide access. So we're currently trying to get the government to revise the building codes to ensure access, not only to buildings, but to information, because we don't have enough of the information being disseminated in formats where, like in Braille for persons who are blind and visually impaired. And there's not enough sign language interpreters who do the nightly news. We finally got them to do sign language on the broadcast for the COVID-19, the emergency broadcast for COVID-19, so that people who are deaf and hearing impaired could understand what's going on, And one of the challenges that we find here in St. Kitts with, as far as the COVID is concerned, is that there's people getting depressed. I could speak for myself with this. I work, and even though they have the kind of working from home, I'm getting paid, but just the camaraderie is not there. So you find you're home, even though you're working and you're using Zoom, but it's not the same as in person, where you can interact with people at work. So it kind of creates some form of depression in some people with certain disabilities. And, so those are some of the challenges that I see that people with disability face in terms of this COVID. It kind of, we already was isolated in some cases, and it kind of put you further behind the eight ball, because you're still further isolated in terms of being amongst your peers, you know. And like somebody was talking about that, some people with disabilities are still shut away. That happens a lot, all pretty much in the Caribbean. It seems to be a Caribbean thing where families kind of ashamed of the person with the disability, so they don't let them out as much. Maybe they might go to school, like some kids go to the special school, but that's it. After they get home from school, they don't see outside again till the next day, you know. And so it kind of creates an added burden on the person with the disability. And I think it is incumbent on organizations like ours and organizations across the Caribbean, you know, to try to come together to find ways that we could deal with stuff like this. And to maybe if we lobby the governments together as across CARICOM, then maybe we could kind of begin to see more changes, you know, in terms of building codes and in terms of just resources dedicated for people with disabilities. I just wanted to add that.
Mr. Mills, I want to thank you for your insight and sharing your experience with us as a person with disabilities. As you would have mentioned, you are currently in a wheelchair. You're in St. Kitts and Nevis, and you would have shared that we kind of, in the Caribbean, we kind of share similar experiences with isolation and um, families kind of isolating the person with disabilities. So I want to thank you for sharing your insight with us today. Um, and we hope that we can move forward in a progressive way. And I just want to acknowledge everyone who's on this platform with us today. I want to acknowledge Sydney as well. She indicated she is from Jamaica, so I don't know if she would have experienced any similar challenges in her country as well. Mr. Roll, I want to acknowledge you here today as well. Hi, Mr. Roll. Thanks for joining us today. I see Kendrick has left. Hi, Mr. Roll. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm
Thank
good.
you. Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. I see Mr. Roll. He has left. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you. Sydney, would you like to share anything? My apologies. Would you like to share anything? As it pertains to issues and challenges in your country, I don't know if it's the same as the challenges that we have in the Bahamas.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, Sydney.
Okay, so it's a pleasure being here. I apparently joined late because of the timing. I have heard the speaker and what he mentioned about the cone. I have observed that as well in terms of the challenges that persons would have to move the cones. If they don't have someone there to actually move the cones, it won't be moved. But apart from that, the challenges that I face personally is the transportation. Transportation is a big issue because sometimes the taxi operators would complain that they can't lift the chair, they have back problem, the chair is too heavy, or there isn't any space in the back of the car, and so on and so forth. So I've experienced a lot of that challenge in my city, in particular Montego Bay. However, when I go to Kingston, it's much different there. It's better there. I am able to call on-time taxi. The operators there are more aware or knowledgeable in terms of how to work with persons with disability. And it's much more comfortable for me to move around and to be more independent there. I also find that it's very challenging to get into some buildings because as much as there is a Disabilities Act, not many persons seem to be cooperating with what is stipulated in it. It still needs to be enforced to a level where persons are really fined in terms of getting the necessary accessible stuff in place. For example, ramps at the front of the building, or even to access the restroom within the building, because I know that there are banks that would have made the adjustment to facilitate persons with disability. But there are also other buildings, like, for example, schools that are not really accessible. I should say that I am a teacher, an educator of Spanish and French, and I'm also the president for the Carnival Action Club, and that's an arm for the Kiwanis Club. And I have experienced a lot of challenges in terms of attending school, because only one school is here in Jamaica that facilitates persons with disability, and that school is in Kingston. So when I got injured, I had to go to Kingston to attend that school. And when I left that school, I wasn't able to go to another school. I mean, in terms of pursuing my education, I attended Shortwood Teachers College, and I am the first student to have attended the college in a wheelchair. And that had set the precedence for other persons, so that no other persons with disabilities can actually attend and pursue their tertiary education. So that is good. But on a larger scale, I think there is need for transportation in terms of, for us as persons with disability, not just in Kingston, but in the entire country and possibly the wider Caribbean. I don't have any experience in terms of the other Caribbean countries, but I do know about Spain because I've been to Spain, and there is complete access there, because it's a different country. So that's what I can share for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Our neighbors from Jamaica, Mr. Watson, I want to thank you for sharing. Mr. Mills from St. Kitts and Nevis, I also want to thank you for sharing. And we understand that we have some work to do. We have some issues to address. We have some challenges that we need. We have some work to do. We have some work to do in the Caribbean. But I want to thank you for sharing with us today. And is there anyone from this forum? We need more. Ms. Stubbs says we need more public awareness campaigns everywhere. We definitely do, and that is what this platform is about. Really talking about issues that impact everyone. And so as we close out this session today, and again acknowledging everyone who has participated, Mr. Roll who has left us, but that's okay. But anyone else, would you like to share or add any additional comments? Share your pages if you have any before we close out the session today. I want to give anyone an opportunity to share.
Sorry, Ms. Moss, just for your information, I know my electricity went out maybe about 15 minutes or so ago. So that may be what is hampering Mr. Roll from getting back in. Because I know one of my athletes dropped off, and so he may be experiencing the same thing with power cuts. So that could be the reason for Mr. Roll not being able to come back in.
Thank you for that insight. And anyone else? I want to open up the forum for anyone else. Mr. Roll, I calling you by your last name because I am not good with names. Danielle, I'm not good with first names. So anyone else who has not have had the opportunity, or anyone else who has spoken before, any additional comments you would like to add, please feel free to share.
While they ponder, I just want to say, because a couple of my athletes are on, and they probably won't necessarily respond without prodding. But Danae Roll, yes, he is on. That's one of our athletes. Danae has actually represented the country at the Special Olympics World Games in 2015, and is a double gold medal winner in his events. Just acknowledge him. And then we have Rashia Wright. She is right now in Abaco. And Rashia is one of those athletes that actually spent the 18 or however many hours that Dorian was beating down on Abaco. She was right there in the middle of that. And her family relocated to New Providence for about a year or so after the hurricane. And she's now back in Abaco and doing well. And then Miss Cheryl Hurst, who was our area coordinator for Grand Bahama. Cheryl is on. So I just want to thank those for chiming in and being a part of your exciting show.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I saw Ms. Danielle unmuted herself herself. Would you like to comment, Danielle?
Yeah, Miss Mom. My name is Dinero. I was a member, and I love playing basketball. I love playing. Well, I was diagnosed with Asperger's and I'm trying to learn to focus. And I'm good. My favorite hobbies, I like to play basketball, bowling, and track. I was a member and also board director of Spelman that means. And I was in, um, also when I was at disability, I was painting a house. I was painting a tree and grass. Yes, and I was keep practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roll, and congratulations on your medals. You were cutting out just a little bit. Your audio was just a little bit bad, but I want to congratulate you for winning those golds, okay? Congratulations. Awesome work.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Danielle, you wanted to chime in before we end the session? I saw you muted your mic, but you unmuted yourself, but you muted yourself. Hi, Miss Wright.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Richard Wright. I part of the Special Olympics. I do bocce. What is what you're talking about disability?
Yes.
My input is people who can't walk, who can't see.
I don't know if Miss Wright would have cut out.
Oh,
Oh, I hear again.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead. We can hear you now.
My input is people who can't walk, who can't see.
Okay, I think what she's saying is they are persons who are included with the disabilities as well. So she's just identifying persons in wheelchairs and blind persons as part of
Awesome.
the disabled community.
Awesome. Awesome. I just also want to acknowledge Mr. Makati. Thank you so much for listening. And he is in support of the community of persons with disabilities. So I want to thank him for joining us today. And with that, we've come to the end of our session. I would like to thank everyone in this forum right now, Mr. Roll, Gilbert Williams, Anthony Mills, Cheryl Hurst, Maxine Stubbs, Rikia Wright, and Cranny Deal. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. And hopefully we can continue to bring awareness to persons with disabilities in our community. Thank you guys for joining us today. And with that, we will end this session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you.